very rim of known space, justice is a long way away.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Space Game Junkie podcast. I, as always, am your co-host. I can talk today. I, as always, am your co-host, Brian, red leather, yellow leather. And joining me, as always, is your co-host, Spaz.
Hello.
Your co-host, Julie.
Hello from the state with all the governors in jail.
if you're unaware, that's Illinois. If you're unaware,
I feel like there's a story there, but that's for later.
Several stories.
Okay.
Your co-host, Thorsten.
Hello.
Your co-host, Jacob.
Men wanted for hazardous journeys, small wages, bitter cold. Long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success.
Are we talking about Hard Space Shipbreaker here? Is that what we're talking about?
That is the advertisement for for Ernest Shackleton's expedition to the North Pole.
Oh God!
Sounds like fun. Sign me up.
4,000 people signed up.
Oh, I think I've heard a podcast about that.
4,000 people signed up.
Wow! And your co-host David.
I was thinking about a quote before this, but I have slight technical issue, so get a little bit distracted. But hello.
That's fair.
For the
Hello.
first time, our co-host David is streaming from inside a tin can after being abducted by Thargoids.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Oh man!
Game Junkie podcast, and we decided to start filming on location.
So put Elite Dangerous down your bingo cards, everyone.
Fine, if you insist.
Folks, we have a guest this week joining us from Boston. Welcome back, Kevin Lynn of WX3 Labs. Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks. Great to be here.
Folks, if you're unaware, Kevin released, what was it, about 3 or 4 years ago, a lovely little game called Starcom Nexus, which when people ask me what's a good game about space exploration, that's one of the first I tell them. Because a lot of games like try to do exploration, but they don't get it quite right. But your first game, Starcom Nexus, got it so right. It made space feel big. It made it feel empty. It made it feel scary, and it really made the discoveries feel that much more awesome. So that was a great game. We had a lot of fun with it, and now Okay, so is this a sequel or a side game, or how would you describe the new one?
Yeah, so it's sort of a sequel, but mostly, so it's without too much spoilers, in the first game, you are a member of Starcom, sort of a Starfleet-style space organization, and you're pulled into a new universe, and you begin this journey of exploration and discovery with some friends and foes and so forth. And this game starts with the same premise, or a similar premise. You're a new commander in Starcom, and for different reasons, you find yourself thrust into a new universe. So
it seems to be a recurring problem.
Yes, basically, it's kind of like there's this particular story I want to tell where you are discovering a new universe, and sort of like, I don't want to deal with the amnesia reason, like why you as a player don't know anything about this universe. So this sets up a reason for exploration.
You'd think by like the third one, they'd have contingencies for this stuff.
So it's not really a sequel. There will be some nods to the first game. There will be some Easter eggs and so forth making references to it, but the story is brand new. So you will have a friendly station over there. So the setup is very similar, but then the story branches off in different directions. Sort of the further on you go, it sort of is a completely different story, but it builds on the same premise. The players were very clear when I asked them. I did a survey after Starcom Nexus, hey, do you want a sequel? And everyone said yes. And many people made this point, like, don't change too much. Just keep the gameplay the same. We want a new story. You can add some new mechanics, but you can make the mistake of not changing enough. Don't change too much.
Well, I got to say, I think they're right, because the first game and now this one gets so much right, I think. The exploration I touched on, but shipbuilding. This is like I usually can't stand shipbuilding. Usually, I just can't. Like it just. So many games are so fiddly, with shipbuilding. It's like I don't want to do this. Just give me a ship. I just want to go. I just want to go out there. Just let me.
Completely unlike me, but fair enough.
Right, exactly. I am the opposite of you in some ways, but the shipbuilding in this game is absolutely terrific. It's efficient.
And there's a good reason for it.
It's
hexagons are the bestagons.
Hexagon. Hexagon. Yeah, that's very true. The shipbuilding here is so efficient and quick and fun. And I love how if you make a mistake, you can just be like, oh, I just want to take that part off. You get everything back. You don't lose anything, so you don't punish the player for trying something different.
For having commitment issues. Yeah,
exactly. So it is the shipbuilding, which is a big part of this game, is just so great. And I love is it the same as the first game? It seems like pretty much the same as I remember it. Is anything but that?
It's very so the big change is that I would say that it looks better. So in the first game, it was basically kind of programmer art for all the modules. Like I got Blender and learned how to make kind of vaguely blocky Lego-y parts, and that worked good. People liked it, but the big complaint was one that they looked very Lego-y. The ships because it's even though it's on a hexagon grid, everything is basically a brick. So for this one, the change is one, the modules are not all a single hex. So some of them are a single hex, but some of them are multiple hexes. And two, I got a professional modeler, Povlas, who's I think from Poland, who did a really great job with creating good-looking modules, in my opinion. And because of their sort of they're not all one hex, and they can join on different edges, you can rotate them, and it really, I think, makes the ships look more spaceshipy as opposed to Lego Erector type things.
You can actually make them somewhat seamless looking while still being
exactly
hexagonal.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, whereas me, I have no imagination, so it's here's a block with two engines on it. Go.
Well, you can still do that, but you can also place your armor strategically.
Yes, which is the big thing I love, because while I do not care about ships looking pretty, I do care about armor coverage and armor schemes and stuff that actual warships have to deal with, because I'm a massive nerd. I'm the person that gets disappointed. That's disappointed the system isn't more complex and doesn't have weapon arcs and superstructures you have to deal with. But of course, most people will be driven utterly insane by that, so I'm not surprised it's not there.
I think there are other games. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, unlike you, I've played a lot of Space Engineers, and I like complex space building. And at first, I was a little disappointed at first. I said, well, where's all the rivets that are going to destroy my ship if I do it wrong? But then the first time I made a mistake, and I said, no, I want this in the front part of my ship. I said, well, I'm going to lose everything. And I said, oh, no, you want it in the front of your ship? Go ahead. And I said, wow, that's really nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's...
Good.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, so there are some other changes. I tried to keep it simple, where sort of any feature add kind of I felt had to add a lot. I didn't want to add small features that kind of added complexity without a lot of depth. But there were a few things that are new. So there's a new thermal system where you can unlock a tech that'll allow you to sort of see how heat dissipates throughout your ship, and you get a moderate bonus for paying attention to that, where heat can radiate
it's
into.
It's also a good incentive to not just penta stack your plasma cannons everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
And
you have to spread them out over your ship so you don't just melt.
And also, I wanted to say that your learning tree is not so complex. I can't understand what the heck is going on, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you've retained the original game's approachability, which is really nice. I mean, the controls are very straightforward. Again, I love how you have the one context button that does multiple things depending on what you're doing. I think that's terrific.
While still not overlapping with any actually useful buttons, so you press it by accident when you're so you press it and it does the wrong thing.
Exactly. Like
every console game from 2001 onward.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
true.
I've been keeping in the back of my mind how so it does not have controller support yet, but that's a pretty high priority. And so when thinking about features, I'm often thinking about, okay, consoles don't have all the buttons that the keyboard does, and so I'll be like, oh, how am I gonna get that?
The big thing consoles might struggle with is like menu navigation and shortcuts. This game isn't really that complex in terms of, it's not an RTS. Like you need the 2 analog sticks for movement and aiming, standard stuff. It's a twin sticker. You need one shoulder button to shoot guns. You need probably the other shoulder button to shoot missiles, and you're kind of set.
Oh, it would go good on.
Julie, do not say that.
But I was going to it's my own personal bingo, but I was going to say, however, the first version of the game is popular enough so that the internet is populated with games for that console like. So that means there's a lot of people like me that want it on that console.
The Switch. We're talking about the Switch, basically.
Okay, I got you.
You're new here, so you don't know that. But Julie mentions wanting a game on the Nintendo Switch on average. What? 1.7 times per podcast, give or take.
I mean, I can't blame her being ride or die for the Switch. It is a terrific platform. It is an absolutely terrific platform. I mean,
am I correct that the first game is playable on the Steam Deck?
It is. I believe there's like some minor issues I've got notifications on, but I actually just got a deck like last week.
Ooh.
And I like popped it up and like, yep, seems playable. Like I didn't encounter any immediate problems. And I got it because I was like, as soon as I get controller support in here, I should, I want to make sure that that it's playable on the deck too.
I mean, if they can get No Man's Sky on the Switch, you can definitely.
I don't know.
I'm not a programmer though, but I have actually done UI design for games because university said so. So I can see this thing running on controller easily.
Yeah, I could see this being very controller friendly, and even the ship designer, which like in so many other games can be so fiddly, I could see this ship designer being very controller friendly.
Yeah, with it being hex based.
That will need some fiddling, but I think it's doable.
Yeah.
I'd be curious. I agree. I feel like there's probably some like tricky areas, but I think you're right. I think that it probably could be made. I want it to be like fun. I want it to be actually fun on the controller, not just kind of like, oh, we can kind of get it to work.
Fair enough.
I think this would be great on the controller. So what are some of the other, like, because you didn't change a lot. It felt a lot like the original game, which is honestly a great thing. I loved it. But are a lot of the big changes under the hood? Like you said, the art. Like, what would you say are some of the other big changes?
So one of the other big changes that's still undergoing kind of discovery is sort of brand new. In the first game, your crew were basically like a disposable resource. They were like your red shirts. They helped with repair.
Yeah. I was wondering about that. I remember there being a third. Am I remembering correct? There was a third bar for crew.
But it was basically, you had crew and it was just a number. It was like, if you got them killed, you had to go back to the station and replenish them. You needed at least 6 to do a survey.
Right.
And they helped but they had no names or faces. So in this, you've got a named crew with a command crew with 6, portraits and characters, and they have more gameplay impact. Like on the anomalies, there are skill checks. So depending on their skill, you might be getting more hints, like sort of, I would say it's strongly influenced by Disco Elysium, kind of in that thought cabinet, kind of like telling you lore that you wouldn't have otherwise picked up, or letting you get good, better, or worse results with like your resources checks. So that's new.
Yeah, it reminded me.
I noticed that.
It reminded me a lot of Starflight, which is a huge compliment. I must say.
Oh, that's the number one. Everybody's like, "Oh, this is kind of like Urquan Masters," like, and it's like, yeah, kind of. But Starflight is the game that like I played as a kid and made me want to make this. This is the game. That is the game I was dreaming of making for all the years when before I started working on this.
Yeah.
Okay, no, my apologies.
Yeah, I would say Starflight is definitely in this thing's DNA, and I love it. Like, yeah, everyone remembers Urquan Masters and Star Control too, but it's like, Starflight came first, y'all. Let's not forget.
Yeah, I actually played it by your recommendation because it's on GOG.
Oh,
the cheap.
And what'd you think?
I couldn't. I played, I believe, the second one, Starflight 2.
Okay.
Because the first one just refused to work, even despite GOG's best attempts.
Yeah.
It was pretty fun. Obviously, very fiddly and with a UI designed for.
It was 1986. There was no such thing as UI design.
Yeah,
User experience was not a huge consideration, but I did enjoy it both conceptually and sort of visually. I did like the aesthetic, but I do prefer games that don't expect me to operate. Like I know how to operate a front panel on a nuclear submarine, and that shit is beyond me.
Yeah,
that was
good.
300K is like how big that game was.
It's amazing.
Incredible.
Came on 2 low density floppies.
You know. Also, here's the thing: you say like 1986. Starfleet 2 also existed.
Yeah,
A couple years later.
Yeah, Starfleet 2 was 1989. Yeah, that came out.
So staggering. Apparently, 3 years later, make all the difference in UI design. I'll take your word for it.
A lot of people complained about Starflight 2 in that it wasn't different enough from the first game, which I disagree with.
Wasn't the first game like a mediocre clone of that Star Trek arcade game?
No. You're thinking Starfleet. You're thinking Starfleet.
Oh, Starflight. Yeah, right.
Starflight.
Admittedly, I've looked at the videos and they're both pretty similar, so I can see where that's coming from.
Yes. Starflight 1 and 2 are astounding games, which I wish I could tell more people to play, but they're so archaic at this point that it's tough.
They're so janky.
They're tough to recommend. The first one is so, like, somehow, I don't know how they did their save system, but that's the thing that keeps it from working in a lot of modern systems, is their wacky ass, we're going to save the whole universe system for a save. You can only have one save, and it stops the entire game for like 10 minutes while you're saving. Oh my God. Yeah, the save system in the first game, it wasn't much better in the second, but it was better. but oh my God. So yes, there's a lot of, the new kind of RPG mechanics of the crew definitely remind me of Starflight in a good way, because it's kind of a similar thing in that game where you have your crew with their RPG thing, with their stats, and like the better they get at something, the better it translates to them in game. So that really reminded me of Starflight in a good way. So kudos to that.
And I'd say the other the big things, I would say the kind of revamped shipbuilding kind of looking better, the crew system, and I would say the third biggest thing is an overhaul of the mission system, basically better mission tracking, because that was kind of a complaint about Nexus, is that there was a lot to do and a lot to explore, but a lot of it kind of felt like old school pen and paper RPG where you'd get clues and you'd have to write it down and like draw maps, but it didn't track enough for you, or it tracked it in this log where you had to search. And people often said, it's like we're I can understand why you'd maybe want to avoid hand-holding in a fantasy RPG, but this is like a spaceship. Your first officer should be able to track like what you're supposed to be doing.
There's 400 people on the damn thing, and none of them could do a thing for themselves. Like, I'll be honest. This is the one thing I find annoying with like a lot of like top-end simulators and a lot of games like that. They don't realize that while you're the captain, there's like 100 people on like a mid-sized ship that can all do stuff, and you can delegate them to do stuff. You don't need to keep a journal or intel. You just tell freaking Ensign McTwiddledum to keep the journal for you.
Oh, so before I forget, I actually have a important announcement, which it's going to happen, I think tomorrow, but I'm going to drop it now. That I have a release date for early access.
Ooh.
Yay!
Ooh.
When's that?
That's great.
Wow.
December 14th this year.
Oh,
A
wow.
little over.
Congratulations! Great.
Right before Christmas.
Yeah.
Right. But does the Steam still does the big Christmas Steam sale start at that point? I don't think it does.
It hasn't. Yeah, because of Steam's release rules, like new releases are not eligible for the seasonal sales. So basically, It was just like I want to make sure that I'm not releasing during that.
Yes, yes. Don't
so
release
kind of
during this.
Yeah.
When I see a game like released during a big Steam seasonal sale, I'm like, what are you doing? This is a terrible idea. What's wrong?
Yeah, the rule is that if you release within a month of a big Steam sale, you're ineligible to join in that sale.
right.
That's
Yeah.
basically how the rule works.
So you're asking people to pay full price while they're spending money.
No,
on
you can do a
games that
launch
are massive.
discount. You just can't
Okay.
join in on the Steam sale if you have
But
done a launch
the
discount.
SEO and all that. Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, do that in advance and
Yeah, get out there before
Do
the
it
sale
smartly.
starts. Yeah, get out there before the sale starts. That's great.
Yeah.
December 14th.
Yeah, and that's basically so. Actually, the Nexus dropped into early access on December 12th of 2018 and graduated on December 12th of 2019. So I'm definitely setting up a trend here. It hasn't been deliberate, but that's just how the
right. So
schedule is.
you can't average that and bring it back one day forward for my birthday. Fair
It's a
enough.
positive trend. It's a positive trend. We'll take it.
Yes. All right. So, I mean, I guess for the day after my actual birthday, I'll. Well, I don't have to get it. I think are there keys that we got given like the full game
Yeah.
keys?
Yeah. Yeah, you should have a
never
key
mind.
for this.
I'll probably still buy it for someone, but sure, fair enough.
Yeah, that's what I try and do. I try and gift copies of games I really like that I've been giving keys
All
for.
right, I need to find one more space nerd that doesn't have this game already, which is kind of the issue.
Well, I mean, I'm sure a bunch of people on our server will probably buy it, and I'm sure there might be someone who would be happy for a gift.
Oh, certainly. What else do I have to say? Not much besides going back to talking about the game itself.
Right. I mean, I put like a little over an hour into it. I think maybe an hour and a half. And one thing I have to say that I think is an improvement from the first game is it seems like fast travel points, whether they're the gate or the zip. What's the other thing? The zippy thing that makes you flingers. Yeah, like they seem a little more numerous in this version, which I appreciate.
Yeah, it's tough to balance because some players really like the feeling of kind of like, oh, I'm exploring and the universe feels big and it takes a little while to get from A to B. But I think that there was room for tightening that up and still keeping that feel, but not have as much of the backtracking. So sometimes,
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, you have to go a couple, maybe like on the main story path. Like if you want to go off path, go into Void, then you can't complain too much if there's like a trek back. But for the main storyline, the main quests, things try to be not too far from either.
The big universal rule for games like that is you want people to be able to explore. But the big thing you never want is to have people go back to places they've already been because that's just dull.
Yeah.
Unless there's more new stuff there.
Yeah. So usually.
In this case, I did complete everything that was in this playable beta that we have. And the most time I spent backtracking was when I had done a whole bunch of exploration, picked up a whole bunch of minerals, and I wanted to go back and upgrade my ship or do more research.
Yes.
And that's a great reason to go back. But I didn't have to unless I had said, I'm done with doing this. I think I need to go back now. And that's great.
Yeah,
One thing I did is
good.
Oh, is that I just made so like the gate, your home gate, I just put that like in the first game, I think it was like maybe like 60 seconds away from your base, and this one I kind of tightened it up to just like 30 seconds because I'm like, people aren't going to want to Like that's not a fun trek. Like once you come home, having to trek back to your base, like that's
Yes.
Let's make that as
Yeah.
tight as possible.
Yeah. And well, I also appreciated that, like, oh, there might be a system way out there. Okay, that's great. And it takes a little while to get to that system. But then in that system is a flinger or a gate. So
And you can just go back.
yeah, if you have it, like, oh, I found a bunch of minerals. I want to go back and try and upgrade. So even if there's a flinger that like flings you around back near a gate, that it really did seem more efficient in that regard, which I really appreciate.
Good.
Because like I played Starflight 3 or 4 times, but that was when I was younger and there were fewer games and I had more time.
It's like you have nothing to spend your time on. Just play our game. You have no other choices. This is the only space game that exists.
This is the only game you're going to have for a year. So, we're going to, if it takes an hour to fly back to base, that's all right. I don't have the patience for that now. So I appreciate little nods to fast travel. Not too much. I get that's a thing you want to balance. You want people to have that satisfying feel of exploration, but like having ways for people to get back to a place is really nice. And also, like, there are some planets like you'll visit more than once. Like I found a planet with a trader guy on it that I had no stuff for him at the moment, but I can go back there later.
Yeah, and then by the way, massive props. You put the on the map the ability to put down notes on the map. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, that's players really like to sort of say like, yeah, this is where the important thing is.
Yes, I used it to note down the big infinite uranium mine because I really like missiles. Is it supposed to be infinite, or did I like break the game or something?
That one you're talking about, the uranium mine in like the Nimian region.
I believe so.
Yeah,
yes.
That definitely needs some balance. It's not infinite. Well, it's sort of infinite, but you have to you can't get it all at once. Like you have to come back over time. But I think on your first trip, yeah, sometimes I think it just didn't have you fail often enough. Like if your skill was high enough, you just keep getting basically all the uranium that you could ever want.
That does kind of lead to maybe not an issue, but a potential concern I have is that the one thing this game might struggle with is a degree of like resource scarcity and the fact that you can't get resources reliably. The fact that there's like 100% return on modules is fine. But if, for example, you have missiles that require you to spend resources and uranium on, you don't have a infinite or semi-infinite way of doing that. You're at that point on like a roguelike level of limited resources.
So the latest update changes that, so your default missiles do not consume resources, but there are several missile variants that you can research that are basically kind of, so like fission missiles are one of the
there's missile variants now because
So the next release, the full release, will have at least one other variant. So your default missiles, and then it adds fission missiles, which are kind of like look more impressive and actually blow up more stuff. And then potentially soon, I don't know if it's going to be in this release, but you encounter at least an enemy with a new kind of missile that's going to be fun.
Got it.
Good times. Yeah, one thing that's great about your game is the combat, and it feels just as satisfying. I love how, I mean, I don't want our ship to blow up, but enemy ships, I love how they blow up piecemeal, bit by bit. I love that. It's just
and the strategic targeting of them as well. If you want to take out a specific weapon system, you can just aim for their engines, or you can aim for their weapons and take those out and pick off the rest as you need to.
Yeah, as the maker of the game, lots of the parts of the game become sort of tedious when I'm play testing. Like it's like, oh, I have to do this mission again. But still, even after all this time, I find the combat, like I don't skip the combat. I'll like press the dev cheat to skip this, this part of the mission, but I'll be like, I'll blow these guys up. It's like I like to see the particle effects. Oh,
it's gorgeous. How the little pieces explode as the ship comes apart. I love that so very much. It's just...
Actually, I really have to give you kudos about that, because I struggle a lot with top-down games, and this one works really great for me. And it's simply well done.
Thank you.
Great.
Might I ask what you struggle with, Thorsten? I didn't know that. What's the struggle?
I generally have problems with top-down games, and often there's a combat is too fast for me nowadays. Too much action, and my reactions aren't that good anymore.
That's fair.
I could definitely empathize with that. I have to I've given up on platformers like in the last few years.
Oh God, yeah, I can't do those anymore. I was never great at them to begin with, but anything that involves any kind of precision or whatever, yeah, no, I just no.
Well, I just like Torsten. We play a lot of this means warp, and I often have a problem with it because it's only the WSD keys. And this, when I first saw it, I said, "Oh no, it's just that I'm going to have the same kind of problems." But that it's not that, just that. And so, I really appreciated the different ways to control the ship.
A side note, Julie, do you have a gamepad? If you use a gamepad with This Means Warp, it works really well.
I do. It's gathering dust in the corner of my desk. Maybe I should dig it out.
Yeah, I just thought I'd mention that because that's what I used when I played it. So.
Also, I wanted to ask, and I know it's probably patently obvious to everybody else, but I wasn't here the last time you were on the show, and it's going to drive me nuts if I don't ask. Does the WX3 actually stand for anything?
No. This is kind of silly. Basically, I got my start like in the tech field like in the mid 90s, and I decided to strike out on my own and become like a web developer. And so I was like, oh, I need the domain name. I want something short. And I came up with this thing that I thought was clever. In hindsight, it kind of seems silly. Is like W times 3 equals www. So I was like, oh, it's a 3-character domain name that I can register. I'll take that. And so basically it's become my short domain name that I've had ever since, even though I am no longer a web developer. So that's the story behind that.
See, if I hadn't known it was going to bother me, and at 2 a.m, I probably would have said, "Look, I got to know. I'm going to have to find somebody who knows your email address."
So remind me, was Starcom Nexus your first game? I don't remember. Was it your first? It was
game? My first Steam game. I had released several Flash games, including a Starcom game. So that Starcom Nexus was actually sort of a sequel. Yeah, it was an extremely basic compared to Nexus. It was basically asteroids with some light RPG elements, but it really resonated with a lot of players, and it was really their clamoring, saying like, "Oh, we want a new version of this." To be like, "Oh, maybe I could make a new version and do my dream game of basically like a Starflight, and these players will be kind of the base." But yeah, so there was that, and I tried to play it recently, and I was like, "Oh, I can't even you can't play Flash anymore." It's like I couldn't even figure out how to play my own game. But yeah, so 2008, 2009 is when it came out.
Is that the Planet Defender one?
No, so Planet Defender was my very first game. That was basically, I had never made any kind of real video game before at that point, other than in Choose Your Own Adventures in BASIC from high school. And that was the first. Then Starcom, the Flash game, followed by a very unsuccessful Gauntlet clone that I made in the mid 2000s. Yeah, it was kind of my first attempt to be like, oh, well, my first two hobby games found an audience. Maybe I could make a game professionally and actually charge money, and that didn't work. But
I think that was probably a very tough time to be an indie game developer back in the mid-aughts, because there was almost no digital distribution at all.
Yes. Yeah. It was fantastic as a learning experience. I think that the mid-aughts was possibly the best time for someone who's wanted to develop games to get started, even if they didn't care, particularly if they didn't care about money, because it was the first time that you had a platform Flash, which was fairly easy to develop for. You didn't have to like learn assembly or.
Oh, so like Newgrounds and stuff like that. Like
exactly.
Newgrounds, Armor Games, Congregate. Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
made a game, and if you made a game that was fun, you could instantly overnight have people all over the world playing. And this is the first time that was the case. Before that, you had to figure out some sort of like distribution system, but you could have players immediately, even if you didn't have any connections in the industry. And so that was really, really valuable. And I think I was very lucky to get started at that time.
I hate to admit it, but I always forget about Flash games. I always forget that was a thing for a while.
Yeah, it was huge, just as but then, I mean, Flash had all sorts of problems, but during
Yeah.
Newgrounds, Congregate era, it was really like, I found all these fun games that were really simple, but they were super addictive, like these tower defense games and like these, I don't know, hit the dot. And one that even kind of influenced me a little bit called, what was it called? Upgrade Complete, where basically you just, what was it? Upgrade Complete, feature unlocked, something like that, where basically like you kind of, the game started very simple, but then like you just, as you unlocked waves, you unlocked the features of the game. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a neat way.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
I do. I remember that one. Yeah. It was a shmup, and as you played the game and you bought more features, you unlocked things like better graphics and more enemies.
Yes, exactly. And some of them very tongue in cheek, like even like things like, I don't even like some ridiculous stuff like the options menu was an unlock.
Yeah. It had really, really intentionally terrible graphics to start with. And as you bought more features, you could increase the graphic quality of the game. It was great. It was really great.
That's terrific.
It's what we call preemptive satire.
That is great.
It was roguelite. It was very roguelite before roguelite was very much a thing.
Oh, yeah, it had it has that meta progression, which was not really a thing.
Yes. Now Flash is dead, and
but Steam is here.
Well, yeah, and a lot of those games, by the way, just I should mention, a lot of those games that were really popular on Congregate and elsewhere have been ported to Steam.
Yeah,
like the rebuild games.
I played one. It was kind of in a similar vein. What was it called? There Is No Game, Wrong Dimension. It was really fun, and that was, I think, a Flash game. There's a lot of, and wasn't what's that super famous Binding of Isaac? Wasn't that Flash?
Was it?
It might have been. I'm not sure.
Surprised. Yeah, Fernando brings up a good point. It's like, I mean, Flash did have a lot of problems, but like, rather than try and fix it, because Flash had a huge adoption rate. Huge.
Yeah,
and
massive.
It started to drop though when Unity started to get a lot more popular.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
People.
And they completely killed it. Was it like maybe 3 years ago? Where they actually like basically all the browsers says we will not even allow you to install this like optionally.
That's right. That's right. It is deader than dead. It is super duper dead. I remember when it was a thing for a while. When I started, I work in search engine optimization, and I started in 2004, and you wouldn't believe how many Flash sites I had to deal with in the early parts of my career.
Oh, that must be really hard for search engines.
It's impossible. We'd have to tell people like the company that I worked for a while. They were terrible. They'd take anybody, any client, and so we'd get a Flash site, and we're like, we can't do anything with this. There's nothing for search engines to read. Absolutely nothing. We can do nothing. We have to tell them you have to make an HTML version of your site.
Wait, what do you mean make an HTML? As in,
like make
what else do they make it with?
No, because Flash. What search engine spiders do is they read the source code of a page or a site, and with Flash, there's nothing to read. There's nothing for search engines to look at. So we had to tell clients.
You can make an entire website in Flash? What?
Yeah, people would make sites entirely in Flash, or it would be in the worst part. If I may have a side thing here, they'd have a frame, multiple frames, which also search engines can't read. Remember frames? And like 2 of the frames would be Flash, and then 3 of the frames would be like HTML. But it didn't matter because they can't read any of those things. So We'd have to tell people you have to stop using frames, you have to stop using Flash, you have to make an actual. We lost clients because we're like, we can't do anything with this. We can't optimize your site at all because search engines can't read this. So you're not going to get anywhere. But we work so hard, it looks so great, people love it. Well, I mean, that's nice, but search engines can't do anything with this. They'd come to us like, why is our search engine listing like blank? It's like, because there's nothing there for search engines to read. Anyway. So yeah, I've done a lot more with Flash than I care to admit, and it wasn't positive a lot.
But it did have the very good, the really fantastic advantage that you could just really, with very, very basic programming skills, create a very, very simple but fun game, and then just put it in front of like literally a million people overnight.
Yeah, I remember playing a lot of great games on on Newgrounds. And what was the other one, Spaz? Congregate? Yeah,
Congregate
I remember
was really big.
Yeah, I remember Congregate. Yeah, that was the the 2000s were a weird time for gaming. It was a weird.
And then of course Armor Games, which is did a lot of publishing as well.
Oh, what was Armor Games? I don't remember that one.
Armor Games, they did their own hosting, but they also ended up being a co-publisher for a lot of Flash games that ended up going on Steam later. They would actually host standalone versions that people could buy.
Yes, and Starcom, actually, I think Armor was the first quote contract I'd ever gotten in game development, which was to give a sponsored version of Starcom. And which actually turned out to be somewhat relevant recently because I had to register. I recently registered the Starcom as a trademark.
Oh,
and
they let you do that?
Yeah. There was somebody else who was trying to register in the same space, but they didn't have a product, and so I had to get involved with like a trademark attorney who said,
"Oh God,
you have proven that you've been doing business using the Starcom mark for 15 years, so we'll just put that in there, and then that." That was the proof that I needed.
Wow, because I remember the Starcom game toys from back in the 80s.
I didn't even know that. I had never heard of those until like halfway through development of Starcom Nexus. It was like, and then someone was like, "Hey, did you know there was like these toys?" And I was like, "No. Do I need to worry about this?"
Probably not. It's been so long, but
actually, it's been abandoned. The trademark has been abandoned since 2001.
Nobody renewed it, and
I believe it.
And in fact, weird little trivia about that show. They actually did have a partnership with NASA.
What?
Yeah, they had a partnership with NASA because of the content. They wanted to actually have kids interested in space exploration. So
here's the thing: I feel like a few things had a contract with NASA at that point for this exact reason.
There were a few. Yeah.
I think
Space Camp.
The movie Space Camp. Yeah, that's what I was about to bring up. The movie Space Camp. God, what a movie.
Returning to the nostalgia theme, I have a question for you, Brian, which people often ask, what genre is this game in? And I'm like, the genre doesn't have a name. Like, there's enough games in it that it feels like it would have one. Like Escape Velocity, Starflight, Space Rangers. There's probably...
the closest thing I guess you can come is Space Adventure.
Yeah.
I think the closest you can come is a space adventure game, which there are quite a bit of. But yeah, like it doesn't it doesn't have an official like roguelike title or something. You know what I mean? There's no title that's been adopted into the zeitgeist or whatever. It's just. It's a space game with adventure elements, so it's a space adventure. That's, I think, the closest you could get to officially calling it like a kind of genre this would fit into.
Because I'm always trying to capture, like, there's sort of a few elements that feel core to it. Like, there's one, it's a space adventure. Your ship is your character, as opposed to like Mass Effect is like a space adventure, but that's like your.
Yeah, no, I would call that more of a science fiction RPG. Than a space adventure, because like you're not in space a ton of the time. I mean, you're more on planets shooting stuff or space stations shooting stuff, you know. But here, space is the focus. So I would call this like, if someone held a gun to my head and said describe this game, I would call it a space adventure with RPG and combat elements. You know, that's what I would call this. You know, but yeah, there's no like official thing. Like I don't even think like FTL spawned a whole genre of its own, like a whole subgenre of
those.
They don't call them anything. They don't call them anything. I call them FTL likes, but they don't like officially. They're not called like anything. They're just more.
I mean, technically they are in that
roguelike.
It's not really. Yeah, it's not really fair to call them clones of FTL because a lot of them use similar aspects. But then, so did FTL, borrowing aspects from roguelikes that came before, just taking them onto a new direction, and that's why I don't like using the word clone when it comes to things like
It's kind of
like that. It just it's not fair. It's more reductive than anything.
Yeah.
But I'm when I call the things like a FTL like it's a compliment because FTL was great.
Right.
So.
Yeah. It's not. Yeah. That's using the term clone with it though is
no clone is not as like these games. I mean, they're inspired by. They're not trying to clone the game. They're inspired by the game, which I think is much more aspirational than just calling something a clone. You know.
Like I consider Starcom to be inspired by Starflight, but it's
exactly. It's totally
exactly.
Like I would say, if anything, Star Control 2 is more of a clone of Starflight than anything else.
Yeah,
but,
although it actually had some of the same people working on it, didn't it?
Yeah, I think some of the Starflight people did help on Star Control 2. There's a couple of the binary systems guys I do believe worked on Star Control 2. But so there's so many similarities. Except for the combat, so much of that game, those two games are so similar to me, at least.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great formula. It was like for people at that time who really kind of wanted, because this was, I think, people who like loved Star Trek.
Exactly.
Oh, yes.
Like Starflight was like, oh my god, I'm captain of my own ship. Here's the universe. Go out and find stuff. It's like, oh my god, I've wanted this since I was 4 years old. This is amazing.
Yeah. If analytics existed at the time, I'd be curious to see how many people's character was named Kirk.
Oh God. Yeah. How I always put my friends and family, because folks, if you haven't played Starflight, you can name your crew. You can name all the members of your crew. So I always name them after friends and family. But how many people like name them after Star Trek characters? I so many. I bet.
Yeah, I bet the science officer was like always Spock. The medical was always Bones.
Exactly, and that's fine. I mean, I love that they let you do that. I love that they let you make the crew that much more personal by naming them yourself. I love that they let you do that.
I would also say the adventure tag applies with the previous game in the series because with the exploration aspects on planets, you had some of that exploration would be, you pick a direction, Zork style.
I was going to say it's almost like an old text adventure, except you're not typing things; you're choosing options. Which I love. I love those little adventure bits on the planets. I always get excited when I scan a planet. It's like, ooh, send the party down! Yay, more stuff to do! Woohoo!
Yeah. The combat's great, by the way, and the exploration is great, but also the planetary exploration was great in the previous game. And that is one of those things that I keep thinking back on every time I play it, is just that exploration of something new.
Yeah, I liked the idea of sort of one of the original ideas I had when I was working on it was I was like, what do planets do? So in the Flash game, the planets were just literally background objects like decoration. And then I was like, they should do something And so I spent a lot of time just trying to figure out what they did. Because in Starflight and also I think Star Control 2, they had this kind of mini game that I was like, I'm not sure this is going to translate well into kind of a modern.
No one would have the patience to spend 2 hours driving around a planet to mine 3 things, because that's what you did in Starflight.
Right. And then is every planet going to be exactly like that? I feel like that's like the planet's supposed to be. I envision the planet as like, okay, you go into a system, you explore it, there's some enemies. The planet's more like the treasure chest at the end. So it shouldn't be a chore. It should be like, boom, like you get down there, there's some like mystery and discovery, but it shouldn't be like more than maybe like 2 or 3 minutes of your time to go through it. So I spent a lot of time, like I actually even implemented a mini game in Nexus that was like kind of you targeted the anomaly and you like launched your ship and try to get down it. And it was like, okay, this is fun like the first 3 times you do it.
Yeah. Like in Mass Effect 2, it did get a little jarring after a while. It was like, okay, I gotta do this again. Okay, fine.
Yeah, but you didn't really play through Mass Effect 1, Brian, and
was it worse in Mass Effect? Was it worse in Mass Effect 1?
You had the Mako landing on planets.
Oh, wait.
You had to drive it around.
Wait, no.
Hey,
don't
diss the Mako.
God.
It was awful. And
I'm not dissing the Mako. No, don't get me wrong. I am not dissing the Mako, because the Mako was actually kind of fun in its own janky way. No, what I'm talking about is the planetary exploration with the vehicle exploration part of it.
Oh yeah, that was annoying.
Exactly.
Oh, God.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, see, that sounds
was reminiscent of Starflight in the
worst way. In the worst possible way. Because I mean, that was probably the worst part of Starflight. I mean, I love Starflight, don't get me wrong, but that was the most tedious part. Was like, okay, I have to land here. Okay, there's nothing here. I got to take off again. I got to land again. Oh, now there's something here, but just a little bit. Okay, I got to take off and land again. Okay, there's something here, but a little. That was probably just cruising around for minerals and stuff was definitely the most tedious part of that game. 100%. And
it was tedious, but I think it didn't suffer as much because like you're comparing it to other games, like it was sort of close to like the basic games that you'd have on a lot of other things, but like now people are going to be comparing it to like just whatever game they could play on their phone is going to be more entertaining than that. So you don't want to. Yeah. I just didn't want to be
like at the time. I was mostly okay with it. There were times where it was like I have to keep doing this. I just want to get back to my ship. But looking back on it, I could not deal with it now. So I'm really glad it didn't go that route. The
sequence was so long. Do you remember that? Like
it was cool though, because like, look at this fractal thing I'm going down on. This is great. I'm landing on an actual planet. I'm doing it like in real time. Ooh, because there was nothing like that in 1986.
Oh no, yeah, they were really like ahead of their times in terms of the procedural stuff.
But yeah, of course the computers were so slow back then. It's like, okay, I'm gonna go get some coffee because I'll be back when we're finally landed.
If it takes too long and it's too tedious, everybody's going to think you're playing Elite Dangerous.
Oh,
what I wanted to ask is because you went from the Flash version of Starcom to your Lost Crypts effort, and Lost Crypts, you're looking at a video of it. It's like a lot of things you see on the phone now. And I'm curious what is the fact that you said that one wasn't successful what brought you back to games like Starcom? If so, I'm glad it did. But I'm curious what made you say, okay, I'm just going to dedicate my time to space games.
Almost every indie game developer has a dream game that they've kind of had in the back of their head, and that when they start out, they don't have the skills to make it. But that it's kind of like what gets them started in game development. And I think Starflight, like a modern version of Starflight, was always that. And Lost Crypts was kind of like, well, I remember having a lot of fun with Gauntlet, so maybe I'll give it a try with that. But I think that I was always going to get pulled back to making something like Starflight. I was like, if, that's what I want to do with my game. I want it to be space exploration where it feels like a big space and anything can happen.
And I think you've succeeded. Like, this is like, I can count. I feel like I can count the games that get exploration right on one hand, and this is one of your Starcom games are among those.
Thank you. That's very high praise.
Oh yeah, because it's like I said earlier, it's tough to do it right. It's really tough to do it right because you gotta give enough of a carrot on a stick to keep the player going, but make space feel big enough that when you find something, it really feels like it matters. It really feels meaningful, and that is not a tricky. That is not an easy thing to do. And I think your game gets it right. Of course, Starflight. I think Distant Worlds does a great job of it. Noctis, remember Noctis? And probably No Man's Sky, and that's probably it.
And Approaching Infinity.
Wait, how do you spell Noctis?
Noctis. Yeah,
I'd say Approaching Infinity definitely belongs there. Yeah, there's so much exploration that's required to actually get anywhere. And then when you do, he's already improved the planetary exploration with planets are more than one screen now. and then going underground, you have sometimes dozens of underground floors to go through, and those can be more than one screen now. So, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, okay. So now two hands, I guess. Now one hand and one finger, I guess. But no, you're right about Approaching Infinity. I keep sadly forgetting about that one. But
it just seems to me that there are way too many shooters type space games, and there aren't nearly enough exploration type games, and that's why I'm glad to see one like this.
Yeah,
I fully agree with you.
100%.
And then there's me, who believes that there's plenty of shooter space games, but not enough good ones.
You're not wrong.
Well, that's not wrong either.
You're
you
both
could
correct.
both be right.
You're both correct. You're both. I mean, shooters are a little easier to do. They're much more straightforward. They can be a lot more linear. They're not as expansive. So shooters are easier to do, and there are some great shooters out there. Easier. Yeah, easier.
Easier to do the bare minimum on.
Yeah.
No one wants to do Children of a Dead Earth. No one wants to do Nexus the Jupiter incident anymore. Both really good games.
Well, I mean, we are getting the more complex games now, thankfully, like Nebulous, and what was the one we played a couple weeks ago? Capital Command. Yeah, Yeah, so we are getting there, but yeah, I think that there has to be a demand for them, and I think there is. Just people forget that sometimes,
Well, I will admit that, as far as my preferences go, if it's a shooter, I'm kind of like, I prefer to be in the cockpit. But if it's exploration, normally I don't really like top-down games, but this is different because it's exploration, and this is why I like games like Cosmonautica, which has that exploration element in it, and that space trading kind of element in it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, exploration is not an easy thing to get right. So kudos to you, Kevin, for getting it right, because a lot of games try and either half-ass it or just don't have enough. Like, you can go exploring in Freelancer and it's a little satisfying, but that's not what the game's about,
Yes, in general, Freelancer's big issue is that despite it being nominally open world, it is painfully linear.
Yeah, and you go too you go too far afield, and it's like, oh yeah, they put nothing here. They put absolutely nothing here. I'm just gonna go back. There's absolutely nothing out here. So it's really nice to see a game that focuses on exploration and succeeds. Because I think that's the best part of any kind of space game. is exploration. That's my favorite part of any space game that has it, is exploration, especially when it's done well. Like,
Thank you.
So yeah, massive kudos in that regard, because damn, you get it so right.
Circling back to what we were asking earlier about what was new. So I guess there is a fourth thing that's kind of invisible, is that I revamped the authoring tools that I so in the first game I was so they're both using Unity engine, but in the first one all the content was mostly authored in Unity. And for this one, I created my own tool, because one thing I discovered is that for the exploration part, I really need to create a lot of content. And so anything that I could do that could streamline that, and particularly streamline the testing of the content, was going to pay big dividends in terms of how long it took me to create like a mission or an anomaly or a discovery. And so that's one thing that you don't actually physically see it in the game, but there's like an entire suite of tools that I've.
Oh, that's nice. Would you say there is more in this game than the first one? Like more stuff, more like, is it bigger?
Currently it's smaller because it's going into early access.
Sure, of course.
So at this point, the goal is to definitely make it bigger, and I think I feel fairly confident that that's a realistic goal. Like, I have a lot of ideas of things that either could be repurposed in a slightly different way in this game, so I don't have to relearn how to implement X, but also some cool new ideas of like new stories to tell and new stuff to discover that I definitely want to get in there. So the goal is significantly bigger.
Oh, good. Because not that the first game was small to any degree, but when you do a follow up, you especially one like this, like, I want more stuff, I want more to do. So I'm very gratified to hear that.
Yeah, that was the other thing. Players were basically same game but different, but also more. So that was that.
That sounds about right.
And it looks like that's exactly what you're giving them, which is amazing.
Yeah. If it's not broken, don't fix it. And if you can add a little more on top of that, awesome.
Well, nobody has complimented you, and this is probably because I didn't play the first one, but I'm looking forward to going back and doing that. But one of the things I really liked, and after watching part of the stream today, seeing a really bad example of this, I really liked the artwork in the game. And it might seem like a small thing to a lot of people, but I really enjoyed it.
Oh, I love the artwork. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take credit for some of that, but I also like to give like the characters and the aliens. This is a very talented portrait artist that I found for Nexus, and I went back to him. I was like, I looked around to see, what other possibilities, but I was like, no, this is for the quality. This guy really does a fantastic job. So Hardy Fowler is responsible for those wonderful portraits.
The aliens and even just the planets really stand out to me, and it after seeing so many times where it's just an afterthought, I really like that part of the game.
Yeah.
The anomalies I will take credit for. I had to teach myself a 3D visualization tool where I basically kind of figured out, I can make pretty good looking environments, and then by kind of some clever kit bashing of assets, I can make like things that look like a cool alien planet. But it takes a lot of time to make those.
And I will admit, as I went through the wormhole the first time, in the back of my mind, I was humming the Doctor Who theme.
That's that song.
Yeah, no, that's a compliment. That is an absolute. I would think that's a compliment, at least.
No, it definitely is. Yeah.
Just a quick question, though. You can feel free to not answer if you don't have one yet, or if you don't wish to answer. Now you can use the gates to travel around once you've found them, but will there be a way to, from wherever you are, travel to a gate where you've already been?
That's up in the air. There's definitely going to be. I have some ideas for some additional fast travel options that kind of expand. So in the first game, there was the hopper that allowed you to travel very short distances tactically. I kind of want to expand this in this one, where there are where there's some ship module that allows you to both make short-range tactical jumps, like in combat, but also maybe short circuit some of the trekking. So like not completely jump across the map, but maybe if you're like 1 sector away or 2 sectors away from a jump gate, cut that down to just a couple seconds. Not 100%. That's not in the game yet, but it's something that I'm investigating. So
Yeah.
I guess the answer is sort of.
I could see something like if you are within X distance away from that gate, but you are not near to a gate yourself, you could maybe make that jump, but then you've got a long cooldown before you can activate that.
Maybe there's a tech that allows you to like recall to nearest gate or something.
Something like that.
But like it has like a 10-minute cooldown, so you can't just jump. You know.
Right. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, that would make sense.
I could see that further down in the research tree.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, you're just going to keep going further and further out, and you don't want to be like, okay, it's going to take forever to get back. Oh no.
Yeah, definitely don't want to like. I mean, I think I forget who was saying this earlier, but like, yeah, like it's okay to have it take a while to get there, but like back should be like pretty quick. Like you don't want to have the same length of time coming back.
Agreed. So it's so nice how you like, at least in this version I've noticed, where like you'll spend time flying out to a system, but then that system will have a gate or a flinger or something, you know, to help make it easier to get back.
Yeah. And I'm trying to come up with like other ways of, I haven't come up with any others yet, but you know, if people have suggestions, I'd love to hear them, of like, so other ways to shorten that trip other than the have a nexus there. Cause I kind of like, in some cases there are maybe story reasons why a particular location doesn't have a nexus, because the nexuses were built by this previous civilization, and there may be reasons why this area doesn't have them. So I need to come up with
one-way flingers.
That's a possibility. Yeah, you could do the one-way flingers. It's like maybe the flinger on the other end is broken. So like you get to this one and you're like, oh, now I can go back to that broken flinger. That's a good idea. I like that one.
Or maybe have the flingers be activatable from only the other end.
Right. Yeah. So you could like, once you've gotten to the other, that's kind of how like the nexuses work, but like, yeah, maybe like in a more limited way. You get to the other end. Why not
just reuse that mechanic for flingers? It makes things interesting.
Yeah. Or maybe if you're only meant to go there once, that the flinger breaks when you use it to leave.
Ooh.
Yes. Also, yes, it is the how do you say? It is the Dark Souls approach. Does not open from this side.
So you can take a while to get there, and then you can leave quickly, but you can't get back the way you just quickly left.
Yes.
Well, Beatles Eternally in the chat brings up an interesting thing. He says, I'd love to see a procedurally generated sandbox mode in the future to increase replayability. So that might be like a fun new game thing. Like you finish the story of the original game, and like maybe, you know, after that. Yeah,
that's a frequently asked feature. It, I think, kind of fights a little bit with the core design. Like the universe is not completely fixed, but the main elements are. They may not be in exactly the same space, but I do like the idea of having some, like, people like, once I've finished the game, I just want to be able to like go into a space, explore it indefinitely, and fight stuff. I think that might be another mode, or possibly like maybe there's like one area you can go to that has that. Like if you go through this particular wormhole, it leads to this endless space. But I do want to
Don't call it that. Don't call it that. You'll get in trouble.
We already had to, like,
copyrights.
Yeah, we already have a game developer that made a pretty solid space game. It called it Lost Fleet. You know, like
and it's a good game, to be quite fair, but the name is a little bit.
So all right, so maybe it goes to an unknown space.
Hold on, unknown space, is that trademarked?
A never ending space, a never ending. Where you find Falcor.
Is it filled with a lot of nothing?
Oh yeah, no. Oh, gotta save your horse.
This follows your. I was just gonna make.
Oh god damn it! Why would they?
What about Endless Void then?
Why would they put that in a children's movie? It's like one of the most traumatic things. And it's in a children's movie. Anyway, sorry. I will never get over that. I will never get over that.
I don't think any of us ever have.
No.
I think I'm missing context here.
Okay, so in the never-ending story, there's a point where the main character goes to this place called the Swamp of Sadness. And
and the horse drowns, right?
yes,
Hortax.
it is.
Hortax the
yes,
horse.
Hortax the horse is one of the saddest things. See, Luke, I never watched Watership Down because I heard it was really super. So I just avoided that one. I just avoided Watership Down because I heard it was.
Now I feel like you should give me like a little paper cut and rub some salt into it.
Oh no! God damn it!
But I just wanted to say that if there's ever a way to convince you to make this portable somehow, other than on a Steam Deck, and you will want to take up a collection on some GoFundMe kind of thing, let us all know, and I will be happy to contribute.
There, yeah. This would
And
be
you're
great in
talking
a
about
Switch.
the Switch. I think so. I don't have a Switch, but are its capabilities close to the Steam Deck?
No, God, no. The Steam Deck is a far more powerful machine than the Switch. But as I'm saying, they have done amazing. Like they ported, like I said, No Man's Sky onto the Switch, astounding. They ported Wreckfest onto the Switch, amazing. Skyrim on the Switch, incredible. Like it's not like. It is like probably the least powerful of the consoles currently, but
what GPU would be like parallel to like on a PC?
Oh, for fuck's sake! What, like a 1070, 970, something like that? It is not powerful at all. It is not
this game could definitely run on a 970.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It is not a powerful machine, but your game does not need a powerful computer to run it. So
take up a collection and I'll contribute.
Oh, that's right. The Witcher 3 is on the Switch. Dear Lord.
Somehow
they did that. I don't know if they'll ever get Cyberpunk. I don't know how Cyberpunk would fit on the Switch. It's
barely around like the PS3s.
Not only that, but the UI elements in handheld mode would be tiny, way too tiny, I think. But anyway. Anyway, we're a lot of us are big fans of the Switch here. So like whenever we see a game like this, we're like, oh, this would be great portable. And it would be. But like get it out on PC first, then maybe figure
get it perfect, and then close enough to perfect, and then I'll start investigating.
Exactly.
Yeah. Get it on Steam, get it out of early access, get it on Steam Deck perhaps, and then depending on how that reaction goes, you might consider Switch.
Exactly.
How is the interface of Switch compared to the deck? Like if I can get it so that, like, let's say I get past the performance and I can get it, I'm not worried about performance in terms of like, will the controls for the deck work for the Switch?
Yeah, it's basically the same controls. You got 4 buttons, a D-pad, 2 sticks, and
it would contribute to it very well.
Yeah, if you got it working with an Xbox controller, it would pretty much be essentially the same thing on a Switch. Okay. Yeah, like if you look at a Switch Pro controller, it is basically an Xbox One controller, but better. The Switch Pro controller is amazing, people. It's utterly amazing. But anyway, so yeah, it's basically would be the same controls. Just like different names, the buttons with their different names, but that'd be basically it. Yeah, Luke. The Switch Pro is an amazing controller. Like the only reason I'm not using it for my PC is because it's wireless. I'm like, I don't want a wireless controller for my PC. I guess I could plug it in, but that's fine. Anyway, We should probably start wrapping up. It's well over an hour. Does anyone else have any other questions for Kevin before we start wrapping up?
Nope, I'm good.
I think.
Except for maybe this. I'm going to retire in 2 years, so I want to see a portable version in 2 years.
All right.
Make it happen. Let's do it. Yes.
There's your deadline. You got 2 years. Make it happen.
2 years.
Make it happen, Lynn. Make it.
We can do that. I think we could do that.
So, folks, the game is Starcom Unknown Space. It is a semi-sequel continuation thing of the amazing Starcom Nexus, which you can buy today. Starcom Unknown Space is coming out in early access on December 14th, so a month and a half from today as we record this on November 2nd. And then we'll have to have you back once it hits 1.0. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because that's
love to do that.
Oh yeah, no, we always try to have people back because we love to celebrate that people made it, their game made it to 1.0, you know. But we also love hearing how early access went because that's a whole kettle of fish, and we love hearing how that went for some developers.
It's the first one was quite an adventure, and I'm knock on wood. I hope that this is a similar and also fun adventure.
Yeah, it went pretty well for you the first time, I think, if I recall correctly, right? I mean,
yeah, definitely. There's a lot of uncertainty for indie games, but I'm very happy with both the response, like, you know, how much players enjoyed it, but also it was like successful enough that I felt, you know, very good about doing a follow up.
Yeah, and well, your games deserve all the success because again, they're succeeding where a lot of games don't. And so we need more games like this. We need more games that are big, expansive, focusing on exploration and discovery. You know, combat is great. We all love space combat. Pew, pew, pew. We all love that. But space is a big thing, and we all want to be the next Captain Kirk that finds something, you know, to go where no one has gone before. You know, that's what we want. And your game nails it. Your game nails it. You know,
I mean, I want to be Bill Adama, but that's a me thing.
It's a little less exploration right there. It's a little more, you know,
exploration, running away. You know,
I was gonna say it's not. Yeah, I think Adama is not exploration for the sake of discovery. It's exploration for the sake of survival, which is a very different thing. Not a bad thing. It's a great thing.
Casper and Janeway.
Motivation.
You've played XO, right? Side thing. Okay, so that sounds like exactly up your alley right there.
It is so up my alley.
Exactly.
I love it.
It's so good. We'll have them back on when they hit 1.0, I'm sure. So, folks, thank you so much. A very great chat today. Excellent chat today. Very active. It was great seeing everybody. And thank you for your questions and comments. Next week on the show, we're going to be, I don't think we've had this developer on before, but we're going to be talking Beat Hazard 3 next week.
Which is a unique one.
Yeah. If you guys haven't seen Beat Hazard, the first two games were top-down shmups that are based on music. The levels are generated on music, but this new game has a meta element that's a space exploration map that's also generated by your music.
Just go check it out. It's really weird.
It's amazing. It's really amazing. So that's going to be next week. But Kevin, thank you so much for taking the time to come on again. I don't know if you can tell, we're all very excited about your new game.
Thank you. And I'm it's really great to be back on here. And it's always so much fun to talk to you guys. And,
the pleasure is on.
Being back.
The pleasure is on this side of the table. Have a great day, everyone. Have a great day, everyone. Be safe, be well. Please take care of each other. And if you haven't already, again, please get vaccinated. If you haven't already, my God, we all need to get vaccinated and get your flu shot. More and more people are having the flu because they're not getting their flu shot. For God's sakes, get your damn flu shot. Oh my God.
I just got mine a few days ago.
Yeah, I got mine last week, and it wasn't that bad. So please get vaccinated and get your flu shot.
I think I'm getting mine some next couple of months. We're on a different schedule here in Poland. Anyways, yes, good idea.
Yeah, why do I shouldn't have to tell people this. Anyway, have a great one, everyone. Bye-bye.